I've actually had several doctors evaluate my symptoms and tell me that there was nothing that could be done. And it was from the mildest of mild symptoms all the way to quite disturbing things. I'm going to talk about how hearing a doctor tell you you're going to have to live with it has really changed my opinion on whether or not a doctor is going to have the final say on what I'm doing with my health. So this conversation is happening because I had a comment, and the person shared that she got some testing done to learn about genetic, hereditary issues, and she has that are contributing to poor health. And those predispositions helped her to find some new solutions. And this comment got me thinking about the whole nature versus nurture thing and the genes versus environment thing. And we're constantly struggling trying to figure out what causes the issues in our life, right? And the human body is such a complex machine that, like all machines, while it's working, it's actually getting damaged. And that's hard for us to imagine, right? But just think about the fact that, like, for example, when I'm chewing, my teeth are rubbing together. Or, like when I'm eating food, like something as simple as the color of my teeth is determined by how much caffeine right? So the color of the food impacts the color of my teeth. Our skin is impacted by what we eat. Like everything about our health is impacted by what we're eating, what we're doing. If I'm moving things around, I could get a cut, I could get a scrape, I could build muscle. And even the process of building muscle, you have to tear the muscle for it to repair itself. That's what makes it stronger. So everything that we do is like this complex process, which means that we are constantly creating problems. We create cancer cells. We create poorly produced cells that are not cancer. They're just not made right. We have inappropriate chemical reactions on a daily basis. Now, in an ideal scenario, our body would clean up these issues every day as we go along, and that would help us to stay healthy in the long term. We don't live in an ideal scenario, and so therefore, in order for us to actually have that cleanup happen, the body needs two really important things that we don't give it. It needs time and energy to be able to clean up itself, and we don't give it either one. So our body uses about 10% of its daily energy to processing food. And depending on what we eat, the time to process or the amount of energy needed to process could be up to 30%. And that's a lot of energy, right? Even though it's a lot, but it's not a lot, because we have it. But at the same time, if my body uses 10% of my energy towards processing food, that means it's 10% of my energy it's not using for anything else. And I think at rest, we use like a good 50% of our energy or something crazy like that. Like just our basal metabolic rate uses a huge amount of our energy. So diverting 10% of energy towards processing food, that's a lot. Now, it takes 6 to 8 hours for our food to get from our mouth through our small intestine. It takes 36 hours for the full processing of food through our large intestine. So are you starting to see the problem? When I say we don't give our body time or energy, right? Because if I am constantly eating, If I'm constantly eating and I need 10% of that energy to process food, where's the energy and the time for my body to do any cleanup? 36 hours just for one meal to pass through me, and I eat 3 meals a day. When is my body going to do any cleanup? So that's the first problem that I see there, is that we don't seem to realize that the processes our body needs to do. So MIT Technology Review had an article. It was called The Energy Conservation and Puzzle of the Body's Healing Rate, where they found that the simple process of healing a wound, so wound repair, was costing the body 20 kilojoules per gram of new tissue, which they tell us is quite a lot, right? It's an expensive endeavor for the body to heal some tissue. But I want to point out that that's only 1/3 of the process our body does for body cleanup, right? Your body still needs to maintain its immune system. Your body still needs, that's the fight against infection, and your body still needs to maintain the existing cells, so the cells that are not problematic. So the process of the body healing itself, the process of the body keeping itself healthy, again, uses a ridiculously large amount of energy. And what I believe it was Dr. Bickman pointed out is that it can't do two huge, intense things fully at the same time. So if your body is processing food, it's not putting as much energy into body repair, right? So what happens when we interrupt our body's natural ability to clean up? It doesn't. Okay? And how do we interrupt it? Well, we interrupt the body's natural ability to clean up by constantly eating, right? We're always snacking and eating and food and more. And if we're doing this all the time, then our body naturally puts its energy on the thing that's happening right now, which is food is coming in. Now, sometimes you'll see where your body puts you in the position where it's focusing on the cleanup, right? So we see this, like, for example, you get the flu and your body just says, nope, no food for you. And you can't get anything in, right? You just can't eat. And your body is able to then manage the infection that you have. So this flu bug or whatever it is. But until we're in a dire scenario where your body is saying, nope, this is more important, if we keep eating, our body keeps managing that incoming food, and therefore we don't have the time to clean up our body that we could be having. Because, right, these are two very energy intensive processes. So by snacking, by eating multiple times a day, so when you get that advice from your trainer to eat 6 small meals instead of 3 meals, understand that you're causing your body to start a new 36-hour process of food. A 36-hour process, which is now saying some of the energy that could be going towards cleaning my body, towards apoptosis and autophagy and all the cleanup that my body needs to be doing, is going towards processing food. So, here's my concern. Doctors are really fast to say it's family history, or to say it's your genes that are causing your weight issues, when many of us are eating high carb foods. In the Caribbean, because, well, first of all, in the Caribbean, it's expensive. Meat and vegetables are much less expensive, and they're much more abundant available. In the Caribbean, you can go to a tree and pick something. And I remember when I was there with visiting my family, they were talking about how expensive meat was. And it helped me to understand why there's so much veg on the plate. Now, my parents are from the Caribbean. So in our household, also, there's a lot of veg on the plate. But yet genes are the reason that we are told that we are heavier set people, right? Oh, it's in your family history. Look at, right? But isn't it also true that if my grandmother cooked a certain way, my mom's more likely to cook a certain way, which means I'm more likely to cook a certain way, right? We've all grown up seeing a certain kind of thing on the plate. And so therefore we will put a certain kind of thing on the plate. And I don't believe that this information is taken enough into consideration as to why maybe we are having certain illnesses, like the diabetes in my family, the eczema in my family. Like these things, from all the doctors that I'm reading, reading, could be mitigated, so they could be solved by eating a better diet. And I do remember for the eczema, my cousin's mother being told, and my niece's mother also being told that you can, eat less of this or that, and you will have less flare-ups. So we have an idea that food is playing a role. But then what's being blamed is, well, but it's in your family, right? It's your genes. I feel like we are downplaying how much the food that we eat are contributing to some of these conditions that we live, right? I myself have lived 3 medical situations. I'm going to talk about 3, but there's more than that. But 3 medical situations where I've been told that I need to learn to live with it because the problem wasn't going to be solved. But then the problem actually ended up getting solved. So my thigh issue. So I was young and I was naive. The doctor said something, I believed it. So I went in and my right thigh was completely numb. I mean, punch it, felt nothing. Poke it, felt nothing. The doctor actually poked it with a pin and I was sitting there like, nothing. And after about a 5-minute conversation and a 3-minute of think, the doctor said to me, yeah, that happens sometimes. Yeah, you're going to have to learn how to live with it. And wellness story, can I tell you that first of all, I was shocked. Like no medication, no cream, no nothing, no, just yeah, that happens sometimes. You're gonna have to live with it. But the other part of the story was like, I was just like, how is that the answer? Like, is it gonna happen to the other leg? Like, is it gonna be my whole leg? Is it just gonna stay my thigh? Like, no further conversation, no try to avoid XYZ so it doesn't get worse. Just, yeah, that happens sometimes. Now, of course, that went away after a few months. I don't know why it went away. But the thing that came to me when it did go away is that when a doctor doesn't know what's wrong, they just say whatever. Is that what happens? Because it went away. He told me it wasn't going to go away. Why did he say that? So, I mean, these are the kind of things that frustrate you and make you just want to scream, but there's more. I had a rash. And I was in my mid-20s when I got this rash. And it was like, lower section here. And I went to a dermatologist. And the dermatologist informed me that the rash wasn't going anywhere. And that I would need to apply this cream, but the cream was only to soothe it but there's no solution. So I'm going to be using this cream forever just to manage, right, the discomfort. Again, I can tell you that I was really sad to hear that information because nobody wants to have a rash that's going to be with them forever. That's just, no, it's not pleasant. But that's what I was being told. And then we have my hip situation, which was about 5 years ago. And when I had my hip situation happen, it was just out of nowhere. Boom. All of a sudden, I was in pain. I was limping. And then about 5 days, I could barely walk. And when I eventually saw my doctor and told them like what was going on, the talk was more about, well, you're not in a bad enough situation to have surgery, so you just have to wait. And I'm like, wait for surgery? Like, is that the conversation we're having? Which basically translate to, well, Violet, learn to live with it until we can do something about it with surgery. Now, in fairness, I don't like medication, so I'm glad they didn't offer me medication. But I was only 45. And I'm being told that, yeah, I'm not going to be able to walk properly. I'm not going to be able to run around with my, at that point, 13-year-old daughter. I'm not going to be able to enjoy my life anymore, do the activities I like doing, because even though I was overweight, I still liked doing activities. And like, that was the first year I didn't ski snowboard, I should say, for example. And they're just saying, yeah, you have to wait until it's bad enough for a hip replacement surgery. Lone swear, let me just tell you, that was not a happy story for me. Because, I mean, the rash was with me for like 20 years. And it was annoying. It was irritating, obviously. And it was embarrassing because you could see it sometimes. If I was wearing a bathing suit, for example. My hip issue, which was solved after only about a year, I would say. But that's still a year of me limping around and not being able to do my sports. And both of those stories were solved by the same thing. And something that was never mentioned in either of my consultations with my doctors, different doctors. Both of them were solved because I figured out what was causing my body to fail. So the doctor didn't help me and give me the answer. I figured out because the doctors were telling me it was untreatable, when in fact my rash and my hip were both being caused by me eating too much sugar in my diet. And I was actually really happy how quickly my hip healed. Like, it took 3 months of eating properly for my hip. Well, I shouldn't say heal. It's not completely healed because if I eat the wrong thing, if I go over my carb count in the slightest amount, I feel it. So I don't think it's completely healed. But how quickly my hip stopped hurting me, I should say. But about a year and a half to 2 years later, my rash actually started clearing up. And like today, it's not there. So not visibly there. Is it still there if I eat the wrong things? I don't know because I don't let myself eat the wrong things anymore. But there's no visible sign of the rash. I'm no longer itchy. It's gone. I'm not sure still to this day why my thigh sensation came back. I wasn't doing any food thing at the time, but my guess today is that maybe I was interacting with something that was causing my hip. I used to go to clubs at that period of time. I was young back then. So maybe the drinking had something to do with it. Maybe, I don't know, right? I haven't figured that one out. As you get older, you stop going to clubs as often. So I don't know if that's what, and it didn't take that long either. It was a few months, but at the same time for my thigh, maybe it took, I can't even say it. I know it was less than a year that my thigh feeling came back. But I'm not sure if maybe during that period of time I was so upset about it I wasn't going out, so I didn't get in contact with whatever was causing it. I don't know. This is a big question mark for me. But what I can tell you is that doctors tell us that our conditions are not treatable because they don't know what it is, right? I mean, sometimes you'll see in medical books and even in psychology books and whatever, when they're talking about diagnosing something, they will give a diagnosis and it's followed by NOS. And NOS means not otherwise specified, right? Which basically means, yeah, it's this, but we don't know. And I feel like the average person needs to know that that's the case. Because sometimes they're saying there's nothing we can do when clearly there was something I could do. And sometimes they're saying it's this, not otherwise specified, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's something else. Maybe it's something that you're ingesting that's causing the problem. You know, after reading that research that talked about how almost every psychiatric condition that they were treating got better with a keto diet, from schizoaffective to depression to they all got better with a keto diet. It helps me to understand that, in fact, even psychological things, the food that you're eating matters. And it makes sense, right? Because the food that you're eating impacts the hormones that you're having, and your hormones impact your emotional regulation. Like, this should be very basic, common knowledge for us. And yet, somehow, when we're looking at these things, we're not paying attention. Because we need to remember, our bodies are very complicated. And we only know such a small amount about what our body actually does, and we treat that small amount. But there's so much more. We, in the last 200 years, learned a lot about the body, but we're still only looking at the tip of the iceberg. And there's like all of this under the surface. This is ridiculously complicated. There's nothing we can do. Doesn't mean there's actually nothing to be done. That's what I figured out. We need to do more research and fight for our health. We should focus on alternative to medical model to focus on solving the problem instead of treating the symptoms. So I'm not saying don't see your doctor. I'm saying push for your doctor to think about solutions rather than only thinking about treatments. In all three of these scenarios that I'm talking to you about today, my doctor only talked to me about treatment. There's nothing we can do meant they didn't know a medication they could give me that would solve the problem. Now, the dermatologist gave me a medication to soothe the problem, but the problem was still there. And for my hip, the doctor was offering me a solution down the road that would mean surgery to solve the eventual broken hip, but I had to wait for it to break. And the thigh person just 5 seconds out into the conversation said, yeah, no, I can do this. So I learned to live with it and kicked me out of the office. None of them were trying to problem solve with me what happened the few weeks before this problem. Not one person asked me that. What happened the few weeks before that might explain why this is happening. So maybe we can figure out if there's something you can change in your day-to-day. Right? Maybe I got a new bed and I had to climb up into the bed and that was causing problems with my hip. Right? Maybe my bed broke and I'm sleeping and I'm like, it's causing my hip to hurt. Like, not one question about what happened in the last few weeks, Violet, that could explain that your hip just bang, all of a sudden starts hurting. Now, that would have been the wrong direction, but at least it would have been some questions, right? At least it would have been trying to solve rather than leaving me to wait for surgery. I'm encouraging you, Wellness Warrior, that we need to be willing to examine everything that we have control over. Because if we're not willing to look at these things, we're not going to figure it out. And our doctor sees us if you're lucky, your doctor has you in the office for half an hour, if you're lucky. I think the latest data said like 12 minutes or something crazy like that, or 7 minutes. It was like really low. So if you can get your doctor's attention and you have some ideas about, can I try this or that, and you have a doctor that's willing to work with you, what could you accomplish? The things that we control is what we eat, if we smoke or not, if we drink or not, or other things, how much we sleep. But then there's all these things that the doctor might be able to encourage us to look at, right? Because maybe I could have been encouraged to go work out. Eventually, I did figure out that walking helped my hip. Somehow walking for long distances the pain was a little bit less. That's what got me on the thought process that this was something I could manage, I could change, because when I walked, somehow I felt better, which I thought weight loss was going to help. So I was walking to try to lose weight because I couldn't do strenuous exercise because my hip hurt so much. And I thought, oh, if I lose weight, then I'm going to feel better. But the walking helped, and I didn't lose not even half a pound. And the walking made my hip feel better. So the walking helped me to understand that this wasn't a weight problem, a pressure on me problem, but there was something else going on. And that's how I figured out that it was an inflammation problem, because somehow walking, I figured out, was helping my inflammation to... Anyways, I found an article and it like kind of clicked an idea, and then I figured it out. You know, we need to be willing to look at the evidence. If I sleep more, what impact does that have on my health? Right? It amazes me when I talk to people about trying keto and experiencing amazing energy and mental clarity and all the things. They can give me this list of positives that they got from doing keto, but then they say that they quit because it was stopping them from enjoying their life. Well, I swear, it frustrates me when I hear that. It frustrates me because what you're saying is enjoying your life is eating junk food, feeling tired, and not thinking straight, not thinking at your best. You're saying that's enjoying life. Why is this our definition of enjoying our life? Help me to understand why this is our definition of enjoying our life. And this morning I woke up and I got I'm going to read you this comment because like it frustrated me. I'm like, no, this is not possible. This morning I got a comment from someone. I'm not going to put the person's name, but they said, I enjoyed your video and I had to go down to 3 carbs a day for weight loss of 1 pound a day. So first of all, why am I trying to lose 1 pound a day? 1 pound a day is 7 pounds a week. So even though I don't feel that doctors are right about how much we can lose per week, the doctors believe that 1 pound a week is what's safe. Why am I aiming at 7 times the amount that a doctor said? Now, aiming at it too, because I'm trying to go down to 3 carbs a day to force 1 pound a day. Wellness swear, if there's one thing that I've been trying to get everyone to understand, is that your body will always do what's best for you to the best of its ability with what you're giving it. If you're eating healthy keto and you're losing weight, why are we pushing it to make it faster? So what I'm saying in essence is, as long as my weight is on a downward trajectory and I'm eating to satiation, so I'm not leaving myself hungry, why am I pushing myself? So if I'm not losing, that's a different conversation. But I feel like just the way this is worded scares me because I have no problem with carnivore. So let me just make that clear. I have no problem with carnivore. My problem here is this idea that the reason the person went down to 3 carbs a day wasn't because of cravings, which would be, I think, the reason to do it. It was to try to force a 1 pound per day weight loss, which then makes me wonder, are you eating enough protein and fat? Okay. I have all these different ideas because I read the whole thing, so I'm just going to keep going forward for you to understand like why I'm so scared for this kind of comment. The person says that I made them think about how to maintain and when they get to their goal. And they're talking now about the fact that they did try the potato diet at one point. They loved it. They loved eating French fries. It was amazing. Did it for 3 months. But the problem was their weight stayed the same. Okay. So the person is saying that once they finished their, well, what I find out later, that they've actually done now carnivore. They're down to carnivore. It's only been 19 days. And they're doing 1 to 2 meals a day. So they're down to carnivore now. Their plan is when they finish carnivore and they'll be finished when they got to their goal weight, that they will then do the potato diet for maintenance. Wellness warrior, this is a problem in multiple ways. This comment is talking about going back to the harmful thing that you were doing before you lost the weight. So I'm sorry. I'm frustrated because I want everyone to understand why keto, carnivore, low carb works. And I feel like because our doctors just throw us data, or not even data, throw us answers without explaining why the answer is the answer. Like none of those doctors explained to me why I'm not gonna have why it had to stay. Not one of those doctors said to me in more detail, "Oh, Violet, your thigh is numb because this and that," because they couldn't, because they didn't know why my thigh was numb. Right? All they knew is that it was numb, poked me. All they knew is that my hip was hurting, but why? All she knew was that there was a rash there, but why? Because they couldn't give me more than, yes, you have a rash. Yes, it's this kind of rash, but there's nothing we can do about it. That puts us in the position to believe that it's about getting rid of a symptom or managing a symptom. So I'm managing my weight rather than healing my body so that my weight can regulate. Wellness warrior, I want you to think about it from that. You are healing your body so that your weight can regulate. I solved all of my issues by eating properly, which means that what I solved was internal. The problem was actually coming from inside of me because I wasn't eating the right things. My body was overloaded. My insulin levels were out of whack. The chemical processes my body was trying to do were out of whack because of the different types of foods that I were eating that were not healthy for me, because I was eating a lot of processed foods. I was eating a lot of garbage. I was eating things that were not helping my body to grow. If I want to grow a healthy body, I need to eat healthy food, which is healthy protein and healthy fat. That's what my body is actually made of. We are so focused on eating veg that we don't allow ourselves to understand that the protein is veg is not complete, which means that your body will be missing things when it's trying to build you, which means that we're opening the door for our body to build us in a way that's inappropriate. So I'm creating poorly made cells. And those poorly made cells are creating skin and internal organs that are going to be poorly made, so therefore they're not going to work as well as they could had they been made with animal protein. If I'm eating a potato diet, I'm missing amino acids to build a human body. Now, in reality, my body will manage for a little while because my body can recycle, but it can only recycle so far. Wellness warrior, I want you to think about this, right? Would you be okay if you were rebuilding your house, that you do the basement bathroom with the upstairs fixtures that you're going to take out of the upstairs bathroom? And then you're going to do, like, where's you're going to take the kitchen sink to put it in the bathroom, but then what's going to happen to the kitchen sink? Or I have to run upstairs to the bathroom to bring up the sink. Like, no, at some point you need to bring in a new sink, right? If I don't bring in a new sink, I can move the sink all around, but at the end of the day, I'm always going to be missing a sink in one of the places. I have to actually allow the nutrient, so the protein and fat. And when I say fat, I'm talking about healthy animal fats, because again, we are animals. Our body is trying to make a healthy version of us. Those lipids need to be correct. So vegetable oil, canola oil, all those horrible. Now, there are some like olive oil and avocado oil. There are some oils like that some people can use and have no issue. I'm not one of them, unfortunately, but some people can use them and have no issue. But we need to look at the evidence. I figured out that I'm not one of the people that can just willy-nilly use coconut oil and everything because I saw the impact it was having on me. And then when I stopped using it, I saw my skin coming back to normal. Remember, eczema runs in my family. Does it really? Does it really? Or is it the things that I'm eating that's ruining my skin? I wish I could say that there were only 3 occasions when doctors told me stupidities, but there's a lot of them. A lot of things that I was told that I was like, nah, that can't be the answer. When I pushed, I found a different answer. And I want us to think about that because good health takes work. You actually need to work on yourself. You actually need to want your health to be better. And if you're not going to do the things to help your body to be better, then your body's not going to be able to support you as far into the future as you want it to support you. And I honestly think that that's a part of the story that we don't spend enough time thinking about, right? That maybe we might have grandchildren that we want to see, or even great-grandchildren that we were going to want to see. But we don't give ourselves the best possibility of getting there because we allow ourselves to eat for fun. Because that's what we're doing. When we find a healthy way of eating that helps us to regulate our health, so regulate our insulin resistance, heal the internals of our body, and get back to a normal weight, that's what keto did for me. And then to have people saying, so aren't you going to go back to eating normally now? Why would I do that? Why would you do that, Wellness Warrior? Go back to the diet, the standard American, Canadian, wherever you are diet that caused your health problem in the first place. Now that you know. And how do I know? Because by eating this way, by eating keto, I solved my problem. Now here's what's interesting. I'm eating keto the Canadian way because I live in Canada and I have Canadian foods around me. There's going to be someone in Australia eating keto the Australian way because they have Australian foods in front of them. There's going to be someone. So like, I feel like the standard Canadian diet that people around me are so in love with, right? Why can't we just make the Canadian diet a keto Canadian diet? It means I'm still eating food, right? Again, I want us to change the way that we're looking and thinking about these things. And not because I'm trying to make it complicated, because keto is keto. I'm trying to get you to see where it's Canadian food. It's not strange food. It's not weird food. It's Canadian food. I go to a Canadian grocery store and I buy Canadian food. If you're in America, you go to an American grocery store and you buy American food. So we need to let ourselves eat the food that's healthiest. I know you might be here because you want to lose weight. And that's why you came into this video. I know you might be here because you have health issues that you want to solve. And that's why you came into this video. Good health is a much better thing for us to reach for. It's a much better goal to have in front of us than weight loss, than like just trying to fit into a certain size of clothing, which these are ideas that aren't helping us to look at our body, first of all, as the important vessel that it is to get us through our life. I know so many people get mad at their bodies. They don't like how they look and they're mad at themselves. And it's like, do you understand that this body is helping you today to be able to be here and that you can always change it by being good to it? See, the problem is we try to change it by being mean, by starving it and forcing it into a situation rather than being kind to our body and feeding it the healthiest possible thing. So I want us to focus on the fact that good health is a great goal. And if we have weight to lose, that's also achievable by eating properly. And I have a video in the description that does talk about the fact that I was able to lose 70 pounds. And you can click on that link to see how I did that. And I did it in 5 months. I talk about it in the video, which is why I feel like what she said about forcing her body down to a pound a day wasn't necessary, because all you really need to do is eat healthy, and your body will do what it needs to do to get you back to that healthy state. Your body adapts really quickly. So if it can get you back to a healthy state quickly, it will. We don't have to force it. We just need to be kind to it. Join the Wellness Squad. I'd love to have you over there. We can have some more chats. And very soon I'm going to be launching a group for us to meet in a Zoom meeting so we can really go deeper into like what can we do to improve our health. So I'm looking forward to that conversation with you guys on Friday. I'll talk to you very soon.